Right, so whilst you've now recovered from your Christmas, hopefully, though may still be faced with that mound of turkey meat in the kitchen that you spent 5 hours roasting in your oven and possibly glancing over at your smart meter, fretting at the price you're being charged by your profiteering energy companies for the privilege of cooking it, you might be interested to know that wholesale gas prices have fallen back down to pre-Ukraine war levels. I'm sure we're all expecting our media to be blasting this over the airwaves and in the trash papers anytime soon, right? Holding our government to account to get these prices down, surely. Give your head a wobble, Damo. I can hear you all saying it. But why have gas prices dropped? The war isn't over. Russia is still led by the ultimate small man syndrome sufferer. How have these prices fallen back to basically normal back before we saw energy companies collapsing all over the place? Well, for the same reason most things go down in price. Demand. Demand has gone down. People haven't been using as much. Why? Well, some will point to a mild winter. I'd argue against that when we've seen snow in December, even down as far as my corner of West Cornwall, and our typically coldest months of January and February are still to come. So it seems a very strange time for prices to lower over that. It probably has more to do with the fact that people are flat refusing to turn their heating on, being unable to pay for it, that has driven this drop in demand. How much of a drop are we talking about though, Damo? Well, back in August, gas prices were at 500 pence per therm. The therm being one of those weird British measures that the natural gas market uses. I suppose it comes from the days of measuring pickled peppers in pecks and horses in hands, that kind of thing. It's roughly equivalent to 29 kilowatt hours. But the thing I like most about them is that therms break down into smaller measures called thermies. Isn't that cute? Anyway, I've digressed. 500 pence per therm is horribly high, but to show how high that really was, energy companies were collapsing when prices were hitting 200 pence per therm. And right now they've dropped in just 4 months from that high of 500 pence per therm to just 155 pence per therm. The price per therm of natural gas in just 4 months, going into winter at that, has collapsed by 70%. So why aren't our bills? You know, it's a funny quirk of our energy market that the price of natural gas influences the price of our electricity too. The fluctuations of the gas market are used to lay down prices across the energy market for the coming months. So this drop should have massive ramifications, but we won't see them immediately. And this is partly due to the stupidity of how these prices per therm are arrived at to begin with, but mostly because these energy scalpers are greedy as sin. All these gas prices were originally future predictions, the futures market, they call it, predicting prices, predicting demand. They predicted high prices going forwards because of that war in Ukraine, but they didn't predict people would simply stop using it, even as the government put more money in their pockets to cover it. Why have they still not turned the heating on despite that then, Damo? Well, because this cost of living crisis is crippling people in so many ways that one-off bungs for energy have allowed people to, instead of loading up their key meter, money they'd have kept for their energy has been used for food and rent arrears and other debts and the like, because that's how desperate many people have become after 12 years of Tory hardship and austerity. They've left themselves no better off energy-wise because they've had other financial issues to deal with besides. People for too long have not had enough to live on. That has skewed the energy price predictions, of course. So now we've seen something of a correction. What a massive correction. The con is these energy companies are still under no pressure from our government to act, hiding behind excuses of predictions and instability. But that's not going to wash much when the world is no more stable at this moment in time, and yet the prices have still tumbled. Imagine how quickly they'd react if they were threatened with, I don't know, renationalisation, for instance, if they didn't lower the prices. Do you imagine our government doing such a thing? Well, neither the Tories, who sold it all off to start with, nor Labour, who are supposed to support such things but are now just a bunch of red Tories as well, will do that. Energy prices need adjusting down and adjusting down now. So please do name and shame them and ask them in light of all of this why they won't do it with immediate effect. It really does come down to how much they value their customers' health, does it not? How much they value us, because it doesn't seem like they value us very much right now. Let's not let the government off the hook for this, though. Our energy minister these days is a chap called Graham Stewart. Don't worry if you haven't heard of him. He's as politically sharp as a toffee apple. But he needs to be bombarded with messages about this because government inaction just won't cut the mustard anymore. People are cold. They're getting ill. And if retail prices were brought in line with these wholesale ones, a great many more people would be prepared to turn the heating on again. It's of no long-term strategic value for the energy companies to have people not using energy. But for as long as they believe the government will supplement incomes and they can get away with keeping retail prices artificially high and make exorbitant unfair profits to the tune of record-breaking billions, they will not act to bring prices down. We're a cash cow to them, just numbers on a spreadsheet. But we need to apply pressure in numbers to both government and our energy providers to get energy working for us, not the other way around. Right now, energy prices are due to rise again in January, which is perverse and ridiculous and makes absolutely no sense in light of these new prices.